The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by David and Una Strickland from Lone Tree Elementary, Braden and Wyatt Bockenfeld from Little Blessings Preschool, and Mia Bockenfeld, the grandchildren of Representative Bockenfeld and his wife, Susan.
Would you like to say the pledge with us? I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Schiebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Armagost, Bacon, Barone, Byrd, Basenecker, Bottoms, Bradfield, Bradley, Brooks, Brown, Caldwell, Camacho, Carter, Clifford, DeGraff, Duran, English, Espinoza, Ferre, Froelich, Garcia, Garcia-Sander, Gilchrist, Gonzalez, Hamrick, Hartsook, Jackson, Johnson, Joseph, Kelty, Leader, Lindsay, Linstead, Luck, Lukens, Mabry, Representative Mabry,
Excused.
Marshall, Martinez, Representative Morrow is excused. McCormick, Pascal, Phillips, Puglisi, Richardson, Ricks, Representative Ricks,
Excused.
Rootnell, Ryden, Representative Sirota is excused. Smith, Soper, Stewart K, Stewart R, Story, Sukla, Taggart, Titone, Valdez A, Velasco, Weinberg, Wilford, Winter, Woodrow, Representative Woodrow,
Excused.
Woog, Zokai, and Madam Speaker.
With 60 present, 5 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Pascal.
Madam Speaker, it's a pleasure to serve with you.
It is a pleasure to serve with you.
I move that the Journal of Friday, April 11th, 2025 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, we will be doing announcements and introductions twice today. We are going to do a brief set of introductions right now. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Members, today is World Quantum Day, and for many of you, it was 100 years ago that the idea of quantum computing was first discovered, and the first ever quantum computer that was shown to be successful was actually right here in Colorado. It happened at Boulder, and so today we are joined by some guests to celebrate World Quantum Day. We have CU Regent Kelly Renison, CU Boulder Chancellor Justin Swartz, Massimo Renzin, who's the Senior Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovations and knows all things quantum. And then Mr. Scott Sternberg, who's the Executive Director of the Qubit Quantum Innovation Hub. Today, we want to honor Colorado's outsized role in shaping the future of quantum science. With World Quantum Day celebrates the transformative power of quantum science, and Colorado is a leader. We were designated last year as America's Quantum Hub, and Colorado institutions like the University of Colorado, NIST, Mines, CSU are internationally recognized for their contributions to quantum physics. And Colorado is home to 4 Nobel Prize winners in physics for quantum breakthroughs within this field. Colorado's quantum industry supports 3,000 workers and has the potential to grow very quickly to over 10,000 jobs. The quantum sector right here in Colorado is booming, with over 30 cutting-edge companies, with more private investment coming day by day. And our recent efforts to secure $120 million has also helped grow the industry and make us at a competitive advantage. So now, members, if you'd please join me in recognizing our guests for the future of quantum. The future is here, but the future is also tomorrow and growing. And this is, I guess you could say, one small step for something really big. So let's celebrate World Quantum Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to invite everyone to the Outdoor Recreation Caucus Happy Hour tonight from 4:30 to 6:30 at BOA Technology. We hope to see you there. It will be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Representative Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee will meet at 1:30 or whenever we're done here to hear House Bills 1310, 1313, 1325, Senate Bill 1, and 1327. See you there.
Thank you. Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry I didn't sign up. House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee will meet today in room 107 to hear one bill, House Bill 1323.
Thank you. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, today we are joined by our friends from the Boulder. Boulder founder and advisor Steve Bosley is over on the Senate side, but Boulder Race Director Cliff Bosley is over here along with Regent Callie Renison. The Boulder and the University of Colorado are proud to continue their long-standing partnership to unite runners and patriots around a race and celebration like no other. Along with the letter on your desk, we present you with the 2025 Boulder Race shirt, which is located in the back of the chamber, and you can see Chair Renison and the race director in their nice blue Boulder t-shirts. Recognizing the 45th Running Memorial Day, May 26th. And if you haven't been there, you don't have to run, but it's so fun to be in the stadium and see all of the armed forces parachuting in for the race. The Boulder has been recognized as America's all-time best 10K by Runner's World magazine. It is one of the largest Memorial Day tributes in the U.S., honoring American warriors who have made this ultimate sacrifice for our nation. In 2024, the Boulder was the 4th largest running event in the U.S., generating $23 million in economic impact for the Boulder economy. The event is a true community partnership that draws nearly 90,000 participants and spectators, enriches the state's economy, and introduces prospective students and families to the state's flagship university. We encourage all of you to experience the best race in America. Thank you.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just quickly, there is a lunch and learn from the caterers and the event industry in the West Foyer from 12 to 2. I recognize we'll be in here, but hopefully there will be some opportunity to go and check out the super yummy opportunity in the West Foyer, 12 to 2 today.
Representative Espinoza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, Monday, April 14th, I will have visitors from Skinner Middle School here, which is in the middle of my district. We have from various grades. They will be here from 10 to 12. So please, if you see people from Skinner Middle School, please welcome them, let them know they are welcome at the People's House.
Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, April 15th at 8 a.m. in the Old State Library, House Appropriations will meet to hear the bills listed in your calendar.
Thank you. Members, we are ready to proceed to business. Madam Majority Leader, members, I will ask you to take your seats.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of House Joint Memorial 1001.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of House Joint Memorial 25-1001. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Joint Memorial 1001.
House Joint Memorial 1001 by Representatives Puglisi and Richardson, also Senators Kirkmeyer and Pelton R., memorializing former Representative Rodney Bockenfeld.
Minority Leader Puglisi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Joint Memorial 25-1001 and ask for it to be read at length.
Mr. Schiebel, please read our memorial.
Whereas Rodney Bockenfeld, the former representative, departed this life on February 13th, 2025 at the age of 69. And whereas Rodney Joseph Bockenfeld, known to everyone as Rod, was born on December 9th, 1955 in Quincy, Illinois, to Donald and Patricia Bockenfeld. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was a graduate of Catholic Boys High School in Quincy, Illinois in 1974, Western Illinois University in 1978, and the University of Colorado Graduate School of Banking in 1990. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld moved to Denver in 1978 and became a fraud investigator for Mountain States Bankard, and later met his wife, Susan, while working at Central Bank of Denver in 1984. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld and Susan Bockenfeld were married in 1985 and were blessed with 5 children, Paul, David, Joseph, Jacob, and Erica. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was high school class president for 2 years and also president of the Denver chapter of the International Association of Credit Card Investigators. And whereas a 20-year career in banking and then owning his own financial business for 10 years helped prepare Representative Bockenfeld for his political career. He was elected Arapahoe County Commissioner for 3 terms from 2004 to 2016, served as chairman of the Board of County Commissioners for several of those years, and served on the Finance Committee. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld also served as chairman of the Denver Regional Council of Governments for 1 year, as well as on several committees for the National Association of Counties. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was elected in November 2018 to the Colorado House of Representatives for District 56, which included Adams and Arapahoe counties, until redistricting in 2022 added Cheyenne, El Paso, Elbert, Kit Carson, and Lincoln counties. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld served for 3 terms from 2019 to 2024, was a member of the Legislative Audit Committee for 4 years, and was a member of the Joint Budget Committee for his final term. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was known for his love of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights and for advocating for local government, he always viewed legislation with a fiscal eye, prioritizing a balanced budget and advocating for K-12 and higher education. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was honored to serve the citizens of Colorado as both an Arapahoe County Commissioner and a state representative. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was very proud of the adults his children have become and cherished the memories of them growing up and later the time spent with his grandchildren. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld loved to travel in a motorhome with his family and visited all but 3 of the lower 48 states over the last 35 years. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld and his wife Susan enjoyed a final adventure to Germany in 2023, where they visited 5 towns where his ancestors had lived, fulfilling a lifelong dream. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld was predeceased by his father Donald Bockenfeld, mother Patricia Meadow, brother Jeffrey Bockenfeld, beloved son David Strickland, and beautiful granddaughter Riley Bockenfeld. And whereas Representative Bockenfeld is survived by his wife of 40 years, Susan, son Paul Strickland, son Joseph Bockenfeld, son Jacob Bockenfeld, daughter Erica Bockenfeld, brother Jim Bockenfeld, sister Danette Kennedy, and 8 grandchildren. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that in the death of Representative Rodney Bockenfeld, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a devoted public servant and an outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 75th General Assembly, pay tribute to Rod Bockenfeld for years of dedicated public service and extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family.
Members, I will now direct your attention to the video that will play, accompanied by our very own Marianne Goodland. Madam Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do, before I start my comments, want to recognize Rod's family, Susan and his children who are here with us today. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing Rod with us for so long. Okay. So Rod and I go back to my county commissioner days. He was a mentor to me, as were so many county commissioners at that time, and I really appreciated him. I will say, I don't think I would be standing before you today as minority leader if it wasn't for Rod. After I had gotten elected, he was one of the first phone calls I got saying, "You need to run for assistant minority leader." And I said, "Rod, I'm just a freshman. I don't think I know enough." And he's like, "You know plenty." And he's like, "You need to run and run this caucus." And it was very heavy on my heart, my obligation, obviously, to the caucus, but also being new, it was kind of a scary feat. And he was with me the whole time. He probably put some of the hardest voices in my head sometimes, because he always challenged me to do better and to do more, and I really appreciate that, and I continue to hear him in my head, especially as we talk about, and we'll continue to talk about, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which he felt very passionately about, and if you said Tabor instead of Taxpayer Bill of Rights, you would know about it, so I appreciated him for that. I think that all of us have been touched in this room. I was sent a wonderful video last night from the good representative from Adams County honoring Representative Bockenfeld, and I was super touched that you sent that to me, so thank you for that. I think all of us who have interacted with him over the years has had some experience that really touches our lives, and so we are so incredibly blessed to have had him for the time that we did. The last time I saw Rod, Nathan Fisher, our chief of staff, and I had visited with Susan and Rod at his home, and I was so impressed at the clarity of his memory. He was telling me stories. "Don't you remember, Rose, when we did this at CCI? And don't you remember, Rose, when we were county commissioners and this person was giving us a hard time?" And it was beautiful. And that is the memory, along with the wonderful memories I have of him, that is the memory that's going to stick with me today. And I appreciate that. And before I turn it over to my wonderful co-prime and obviously members of this chamber who want to speak about their own experiences, I do want to thank the governor. After Rod had passed, he flew the flag half-mast for him and also delivered a flag to the family, and really appreciated him stepping out and stepping with us as we honored the life of Rod Bockenfeld. And so with that, Madam Speaker, I would like my co-prime to be able to speak.
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, colleagues. It is with a heavy heart, but a lot of gratitude that I join the minority leader in honoring the life and service of my predecessor in House District 56. I met Rod about a decade ago when I was running for county commissioner in Elbert County. He was seated just to the north of me. Our county had some issues. County commissions sometimes find themselves in a bit of turmoil, and ours was there. Arapahoe County just had a really solid local government, and I'd reached out to him for kind of some guidance and just to talk about what right looked like. And he was absolutely forthcoming with advice and mentorship throughout, and it was just a great experience. The day I took office was his last day as he left office as a commissioner in Arapahoe County. And honestly, that was unfortunately the last time we spoke for a couple of years. He moved up here to the State House in what was Arapahoe and Adams, the old HD 56, and then after the census and redistricting came about, that kind of brought us back together. It was when the new maps came out, realized that he would be the representative for Elbert County, and we reconnected over that. Actually, had the honor of nominating him at Assembly for his first run, his last term here in the newly formed HD 56. And just, it was a great reconnection. We talked quite a bit over the next year or two, had the opportunity to come up and testify in support of one of the last bills he ran, one of the last times he was in the Capitol. And not surprisingly, it was protections for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights and people's tax dollars. So, you know, just that chance to serve with him, to talk with him, I mean, just, he was a statesman in every sense of the word. You know, that booming laugh, the large personality that filled a room. He brought just passion and honesty and levity, quite honestly, to almost every discussion. And you could tell just how proud he was of serving his communities in this state, his time on the audit committee, and certainly I think for him the crown jewel of his service was serving on the JBC. You could just tell the passion that he brought to that and how important that was to him. But as we saw in the video, he could definitely get on a roll. If you've ever been in a room with him when he started talking about what might be wrong with government, you knew that he was an endless fountain there. But I think most importantly, he would be the first one always to roll up his sleeves to try to fix what he saw was wrong and to bring along others with him. And, you know, you could disagree with him. He could tell you exactly why you were wrong, but at the end of the day, you were brothers and you moved on together. You know, he lived a life in service to others, and for that, I'm entirely grateful. I know we're here to honor him today, and it was mentioned earlier, but I absolutely thank you, Susan, and his family for lending him to us here in this building and in the county before, so we could all have benefited from the man that he was. So I thank you, Rod. Your service mattered, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Madam Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, we would request the Speaker allow members of both the Democrat and Republican caucuses to say a few words.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I was part of the same class in 2018 that was elected with Rod. And it's incredibly sad that I'm the only one from that class left. I was looking forward to being able to serve until we were term limited with Rod. Listen to the quiet of the chamber for just a second. It would be empty just like that. And Rod would be back at his desk. And oftentimes I'd be running to my desk down here and would pass him. And before it was through, I would sit down and he and I would have just had an hour-long conversation. And it would have been learning about his daughter and her law school, which I need to meet you because he never mentioned his sons. It was always his daughter. But he would have all sorts of life advice, such as, Matt, you really don't want to go back to law. You should go into banking. That's one thing I remember. And I remember whenever we had a heated debate, you could tell he was getting worked up back at his desk. And there'd be the thundering steps as he came down and his hand up. And when he took the well, you knew he was here. And you knew what he had to say was important and had to be listened to. I don't think I have ever served with anyone quite like Rod, who would offer you advice, be your friend, we weren't always on the same side of every issue, but he understood that we were colleagues, and he understood our role here as legislators more than anyone did. And he's someone that I will greatly miss. And one thing that I do want to say is I was picking up a name tag. I had lost one, which was my first, Kathy, I assure you. But there was another name tag there, and this was the final one of Rod's, and I want to present this to the family because seeing that just brought back so many precious memories because Rod would always wear his name tag, but he would always have his ID too. I remember that as well. And he will be deeply, deeply missed.
Thank you. Representative Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to welcome Commissioner Jeff Baker here and all those from Arapahoe County. Representative Bockenfeld was my commissioner before he came to the Assembly. And Rod was so wonderful, just a man of integrity, big heart, compassion, Arapahoe first. And you always knew that he would just welcome any conversation with just an open heart. And I just want to let you know that all of Arapahoe is mourning Representative Bockenfeld, just amazing public servant and someone that remembered everyone. Every time I'd ask him about a bill, he'd say hi to Mike, my husband. So he just, the personal touches and just, again, the heart as big as Colorado, a true public servant. Arapahoe County is mourning Rod Bockenfeld today.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm proud of all of you for keeping it together. I always cry at the well, so forgive me. My favorite memories of Rod are honestly when he would come down here and he demanded such a presence. Obviously, he got deep respect from both sides of the aisle, but boy, when he left this well, if you said something he didn't like, he would be halfway up there and turn back around with that hand in the air. And Madam Speaker, you would know he was going to come back to say something in this well. And I was like, man, I want to be like that guy right there. And I do think that I have taken a lot from him. I always loved in our caucus meetings, I learned so much about Referendum C. I think I dream about Referendum C a lot of the time. He would bring so many graphs and charts, and if I would come to this well and say Tabor, he would be like, damn it, Representative Bradley, it is not Tabor, it is Taxpayer Bill of Rights, don't you ever say that again. And I'm like, okay, Rod. He just was such an amazing man, and I think Rod and I connected on something different. I'm a mama bear. I don't know a lot of names in politics. I just knew that I was led to run. Here we go, cue the tears. And Rod loves Susan like I love my husband. And Rod loved his family like I love my boys. And he did, thank you, he did talk about his boys to me. So to his sons, he definitely talked about his boys. And he loved those 8 grandchildren. And he ran for office to protect those children and to protect his grandchildren. And so on the parental rights front, we had many conversations. And Rod really stood because he did not want his kids to inherit debt. And so he really fought for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights because he didn't want to hand down them a lot of debt. And so he and I really stood for a lot of that. And he would just put me under his wing. I think he felt a little bit sorry for me that I got kind of run into this to run for office, knowing really not a lot of stuff. But he really guided me, and really I felt like he protected me kind of like a papa bear, and I will be forever grateful for that. So thank you, Rod.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rod and I also came to the legislature in 2019, and I remember the first time I met him, we were in our orientation in 0112, and we started having a political conversation, as you do in this building. Turns out we didn't agree on much, or anything really. But as I was walking to LSB one day for committee, I spotted Rod hopping out of a little tiny Nissan Leaf in the Loop. You know, being me, I of course ran up to razz him about being an EV driver, and he had a good laugh about it, and from that point on we always shared a conversation whenever I'd walk by his desk or whenever we were at the coffee. He used to say that if all Democrats were like me, he might have a problem. And the thing about Rod was that we could disagree, but he was really the opposite of disagreeable. He was a good man. He was very kind. He was nice. He loved his family. He talked about them all the time. And so, you know, I just want to say Godspeed, my unlikely friend. And don't worry, I won't tell anybody you love DVs.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And while I never had the pleasure to serve with Representative Bockenfeld, he became a mentor pretty fast. I was an aide in the congressional office, and he would sure make fun of me, saying, come down to the local level, anytime I had the option to tour his good district. But after he would jest, he would then take me under his wing, and with more pride than you can imagine, he would show me around all of his counties. And then I had the honor to come down to the state level, more local, and he would still make fun of me, saying, no, you're not local enough. Go down to the commissioner office, but you're making steps. And he would welcome me with open arms every time to the House, because I always worked in the Senate, and he said, I will not make fun of you for working on the red side. You are always welcome here in the green, and if you ever want to change rods, we still have the same district, so you can come over here and work for me. And I'm not sure who adopted who, if I adopted him or he adopted me, but I did a lot of work for him, and he did a lot of mentorship. He was there when I was frustrated. I was always welcome in his office. And he could tell just by looking at you what state of mind you were in. And sometimes words were not said. He would just point to a chair, let me stay there, and then he would start talking about his grandkids. So it was never about his daughter or son, it was about the grandkids, his true joy. But no, he definitely was the embodiment of a statesman. He put his family first, he was always there to serve the people, and he would explain it. And I always said, I want to be like Rod. I want to make sure that I can always vet out my thoughts and where I'm coming from. And just like him, I make sure if I'm ever wrong, he would say, you make sure you can admit that as well. But make sure you know where you're standing, make sure your boots are solid on the soil that you represent, and make sure that you can always explain your thought process, because if you can't, then you need to go more local. And he always said, you're not local enough until you go more local, and that starts at the family's table. So I have got a lot from him. I'm so sad I can't actually serve with him. But he has served us in more ways, and his legacy will always live on, not just in the mentorship he gave in this building, but from his beautiful family, from his beautiful grandkids. And it's more about the legacy we live, and he would always say that. How are people going to remember you? Not what did you do, but what are the feelings you gave them, and how will they remember you? And that was always with respect when it came to him. We might disagree, he might get upset with you, and boy, was he scary when you upset him. It was like a papa bear. You did not want to upset him, but it always came back to love. So let us never forget the ways he taught us, and let us move forward to be more like Rod.
Representative Leader. Representative Leader.
Madam Speaker, may I ask for Rep. Weinberg to join me? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Weinberg.
There's a little story behind this. See, when we allegedly spent too much money, Rep. Bockenfeld had these pigs, well, they all have these pigs over
It's
here.
not allegedly.
And Rep. Weinberg, I believe, is the one who purchased all these pigs.
No.
Well, I'm like, well, it was a whole dwarf. Okay, well, I told Rep. Weinberger, I go, I have to have one of them. So he gave me a pink one. And then I was walking around, and I seen this purple one on Rep. Bockenfeld's desk. And I love purple. I'm like, do you think he'll care if I trade him? And he goes, he's not going to care, because I don't know where he was. And so I swapped him out. He goes, he's not going to know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I waited about a week, and then I went back over there with this little purple pig. And I said, did you notice that I swapped you pigs and gave you the pink one? He's like, yes, I did. And I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, well, do you want your purple one back? He's like, no, you can have it. So I just had to have that tell that little story, because I will always remember him, and I kept the pig from, it was either the last session or the one before that. So thank you for sharing him, and he was a great man. Thank you. That's for you, Rep. Bockenfeld.
Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't going to say anything, fellow colleagues, but obviously compelled now. The one word that bellows out every time in this room, and one of the things he taught me was be a statesman. And you have to work with each other. I remember him telling that to us all the time. And we're in this as a family together, whether we agree with each other or not, for 120 days. Whether we like each other or not, we're stuck for 120 days with each other. And I'll never forget, and I was just telling the family, I was an appointment from the late and great Hugh McKean. When I first came into 212, he was the only one in there, and I had no clue who this guy was. I knew nothing about the legislation. And the minute I opened the door, he just turned around and a huge bell out of, "Brother Ron," and I'm like, holy crap, what is going on? And that's what he would call all of us. I don't know if anyone had that memory. You always, Brother Ron, or Brother Ty, or Brother Catlin. I mean, it was just his saying every single time, and he really did teach me a lot. And I'm grateful to have known him, and to at least taken a few pieces, because he was a smart man. I'll tell you that much. And whether you agreed with him or didn't agree with him, you would know where he stood and why he stood there on that statement. So, cheers to you, Brother Rod. You're missed.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. I really wanted to just share this story about Representative Bockenfeld. I'm not sure if you saw, there was a picture of a bill signing that he and I were at, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you know a little bit about education," because I was getting a lot of heat for being on school board and in the legislature at the same time. And this was my first year. And he reached out to me and said, "I think you know a little bit about this." I didn't even actually know him. He was like, "Rep Bacon." I'm like, "Who are you, sir?" "Okay, thank you." And we worked on a bill for open enrollment for military students who were transferring bases. And so for him to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I think you know something about this. Can we work on it together?" was just such a great, I think, introduction to bipartisanship for me, because I had already been touted as a big bad liberal from Denver. Okay. But little would I know that would be, he's like, "Yeah, that's pretty much true. Thanks, guys." But that was my first bill ever that I went to committee on. And so it was such an honor to have my first legislative bill be with Rod Bockenfeld. But after that, I said, "We're friends now." And he was like, "Oh God, what did I do?" And I was like, "Look, you mentioned family. We're a family. I love you." Every time I saw him, I would give him a big smile, and he would smile back, roll his eyes, and then say, "What's up, kid? How you doing, kid?" But my last funny story was just like, now that we're family, I need to be part of your family. And he was like, "Well, I'll give you a clue." He was like, "My daughter's having a baby." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I have great baby books. I'm gonna give you A is for activist." And he rolled his eyes and was like, "Well, she'll take it." because they all start out like you, all Democratic, but they end up like me as a Republican. And I was like, if we're family, you do know we are walking in an episode of All in the Family. You are Archie Bunker. Your daughters, I think her name was like Samantha or something like that, and I'm the Jeffersons. And he thought that was hilarious. And for those of you who do not know that show, he was totally Archie Bunker. He was totally Archie Bunker. And I loved it, and I would just walk around like, the time is now. Save America. God bless us all. Vote. And he was like, have several seats. He didn't say that, but his face looked like that. But it was really such a great experience to get to meet him. And again, that first bill, and he never begrudged me of being that big bad liberal from Denver. And he did everything that he could to explain, to teach, or to mentor. And so grateful that my first interaction in this building was with him to really set a tone of what's possible. So thank you so much to the family. I still do have the baby books. He would not take it, but he said he would take it. But I still have them. It is A is for activist, C is for community, all the liberal stuff. But I've always walked around with that book and be like, "Are you ready for it now?" And he would say, "Thanks, kid," but no thanks. So thank you all so much. Thank you to the family. Thank you for sharing him with us, and thank you.
In my first week here, I spent quite a bit of time with Rod because he was introduced to me as a member of the JBC, and I was very interested in how the JBC worked, and in particular, for most people know that education, both K through 12 and higher education, are always going to be my highest priorities. And so I, on his invitation, started going to the JBC in that first week. Well, again, knowing me and the quiet one usually, and one that doesn't like to stand out in a crowd. By the way, there's a suit out there someday I'd like to have the guts to wear. My wife, trust me, my wife would love to see me do that. So I started going to the JBC, and in my quiet demeanor, I was sitting in the back row just listening. And Rod, who I was just getting to know, said, "You can't sit there, Rick. You can't sit there." I said, where am I supposed to sit? He said, "You're going to be in the dais right next to me." Okay. So as a freshman, 1 week into this thing, I'm up at the dais, and I just want to listen because we're talking about K through 12 and higher education, and he elbows me, and he said, "You got to talk." I'm like, holy smokes, I got to talk. And then he leans over to me after I ask a question about funding for higher education. He said, "Rick, you have to tell us where you're going to save money if you want more money for higher education." That was my start to Rod. Late in that freshman year, I knew Rod had been a county commissioner, and he knew that I had been a mayor for quite a while. Well, for those of you that have been here, I ran a DDA bill. Everybody knows about the downtown development authorities in terms of extending it. Rod, as a county commissioner, and this is not an exaggeration, hated DDAs. This is the first time that Rod and I have ever disagreed on any bill. And I'll still remember when I would make my plea to this body of extending the DDA, I could see him coming up out of his chair, running down here, getting onto the mic right behind me, blasting me, just absolutely blasting me in the DDAs. And I said, uh-oh, I have created an enemy in my own caucus. On the way out that day, he had the biggest smile on his face, and he just looked at me and said, "Wasn't that fun?" You know, me, slight. I didn't think it was fun at all. I was scared to death of this big man running at me. I was he was Papa Bear without any question. I was sad last year because last year I ran a bill for the county commissioners and the CCI to actually develop a downtown development authority type of presence for the county. And I'll leave you with this. When I was appointed to take Rod's place, I knew how painful it was for Rod. But the few times he could be here, I would stop by his desk and always look for his mentorship and his insight so I didn't screw up too terribly badly, which I did, but trying to catch up on the JBC. The last day I saw Rod, when I was headed over to the JBC, in a grin that was different than when he was totally healthy, he just looked at me and he said, "Rick, don't screw up." That was the last conversation we had. Thank you, Rod. I will always, always appreciate and love you. Thank you.
Representative Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Rod's family for being here today. When I first got here to the legislature, I was seated right next to Representative Bockenfeld, and in my head, what I considered the Republican side. And as a colleague and a Democrat from Boulder, and I consider myself progressive, I was really nervous, to be honest with you all. I was so scared. I was like, I can't believe this. Why am I seated there? I even texted my friends and called. And I was very timid about the whole experience. But Rep. Bockenfeld he's such a kind and loving person. In my first week, I don't know if he understood or knew there was something going on with me. He said, Junie, when your name is being called during the roll call, you respond for me and I respond for you. And I was like, okay. And we did it. We did it a couple of times, and next thing you know, I saw the chief clerk flying toward our desk. And he was like, no, 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 you can't do that. So, and then Brett Bockenfeld was like, well, Junie, I guess we can't do that anymore. We've been scolded, we can't. So that was my first experience with him. He was just so kind and loving, and ever since then, we bonded, we had a relationship, we had a friendship, and we were always laughing back there. It really didn't matter what was happening, we were laughing about something. Whether it was during when we were having our budget conversations, he would come down here and be very heated, and then he'll come back and sit down, and I'm looking at him, and he'll just look back at me, and then we started smiling. We just started laughing. That's the kind of person that he was. He just was such a kind-hearted person. And one other thing that I wanted to share with all of you that will never leave me as a legislator. My first year, I had what I considered a hard bill. It was a bill that meant a lot to me and to my constituency and to my community, and I couldn't find the money. I certainly couldn't find it with our JBC representatives. And then I went to Rep. Bockenfeld, and I started complaining to him, and I said, well, I can't find the money. Can you help me? Can you help me? And he asked me which bill that was, and when I told him, he said, oh, no, I cannot help you on that bill. And I kept asking, and I kept asking. And believe it or not, he kept telling me, well, Junie, have you considered look into this fund and looking into this fund? And I would go to the JBC colleagues, and they probably didn't realize that I had my own secret weapon right next to me because they were confused. Every time I would go to them, I would find a fund, and it was Rep. Bockenfeld, believe it or not. That's the kind of person that he was. He was very kind, and again, there was a comment made earlier that he was a statesman. And I truly believe that with all of my heart. As I do this work, he truly inspires the work that I do here. That's why when I'm looking at bills, I don't look at them as Republicans or Democratic bills. I look at them as bills that we're trying to pass for our communities, because I knew, honestly, if it weren't for the support of Rep. Bockenfeld, I would not have been able to pass that bill because I would not have figured out the funding. But I kept going back to him and going back to him, and he helped me with that particular bill. And I remember during the last couple of days of session, and I knew as well there was another bill I had, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to make it to 33. And I said, Rep. Bockenfeld, can you be my 33rd vote? And he said, oh, no, no way, I'm voting for that bill. But eventually he was like, okay, let me look around and see which Junie bills I can, vote yes on. And he did find that bill. So I just think he was such a lovely, kind-hearted, and wonderful human being, a wonderful colleague, and I think we also strive to be more like Representative Bockenfeld. He was just such a kind-hearted person. Again, I am delighted that somehow you saw in it the colleagues who sat me next to Representative Bockenfeld. They knew that I would have a good relationship and a great time working with him. So again, I just want to thank the families for, giving us the opportunity to work with such a wonderful, wonderful human being. Thank you.
Representative Woog.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had the pleasure of working and serving with Rod in 21 and 22. Some of the things I say we've heard, but I think it's important for you guys just to understand how he, made an impression on us. So he did sit in the back, and one thing that stands out, he was a listener. As was mentioned, that debates are happening down here, and he's just taking it in, and he's jotting down notes, and he's slowly getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And then he comes down here and kablam, like this guy is the speech of a lifetime every time. He was always well prepared though. I learned that from him. He'd sit in the back and just listen and watch and just prepare this great speech every time. And he always had a piece of paper, and he always brought that paper down. He was so prepared. And that just really I will never forget that. That wore off on me. He was, like we said, he's a statesman. He was a fighter. He was, there's no question, his enthusiasm, his animation, I mean, and he meant it. It wasn't for show. He believed it, and I think that's why I was like, I like this guy. Like, he's down there. This isn't a show. That's him. Like, he believes in this. He was caring, too. During this last race I ran, and I can't imagine what you guys went through, but he would call me and just make sure I had what I needed. Are you getting the donations? What do you got? I mean, he just was always checking on me. So that just, yeah. He was his own man, no question. I respected that. We have this caucus, and we try and get along. He was his own man. Sometimes there'd be arguments in caucus meetings, but with that, he was also a leader. He really was. And like some others mentioned, you came in a room, whether it was a group of people or just him sitting in there, and Brother Dan, how are you doing? And I mean, how good does that make anyone feel? It just made you feel incredible. He just cared, he really did. So I think I'll leave it at this. My dad died when I was young, and I don't think I've realized it, but just through life, in my situation, you're looking for men to look up to, and how are they doing things? And I didn't even realize it, but Rod was one of those guys. So I was blessed to work with him, and thank you.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor of sitting where Representative Bockenfeld sat when he was whip. And when I was moving into the desk, I saw his name and I was like, oh, Rep. Bockenfeld, I'm sitting in your old desk. And he says, yes, don't spoil it. Sorry. One day I walked in and you know those magnets with the words where you can create your own phrases. And I look on my cabinet and it says, fight the military-industrial complex. And I was like, what is this? And he's like, that's you. And I was like, okay. He took reading the bill at length to a whole new level by reading the fiscal notes at length. And he would come down waving that piece of paper, that pink slip, and he would sit here and he would read it, and then sometimes when he thought we weren't listening, he would say, I'm gonna read that part again. And I think the thing that I miss most about Rod in this chamber is anytime an amendment died or a bill passed, you would hear from that corner a, what? And we don't have that. I hear it in my mind every time that an amendment passes or dies or a bill passes on seconds. I hear Rod bringing levity to the chamber and just asking out loud, what?
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bubbles. That's what Rod called me. Bubbles. He had a nickname for a lot of us. Some you knew and some you didn't know, but he had nicknames. I had the pleasure of sitting in front of Rod all 4 years, or the last 2 terms, and he and I would, in the middle of third reading, debate as to whether we should push the red or the green button. Sometimes we were able to persuade each other, sometimes we weren't. But he was always giving me a new perspective. He always gave me a new set of facts. Look, don't you know, blah, blah, blah. No, why didn't you tell me that before, right? The machine is now closed. And I appreciated the back and forth. I appreciated the banter that was filled with wisdom. I appreciated the banter that was filled with advice about how to navigate in this space. He was truly a man of integrity. He was a man of integrity. You could call him and ask him about ethical issues that you were facing, and he would give you a straight answer in a place where much is curved. and I appreciated that about him. I appreciated that he was able I just appreciated that about him. Switching gears, one of the things he was bothered by is the way we say the Pledge of Allegiance. He didn't like that we put a comma between under and God. There is no comma. So he would very loudly put them together such that we knew it was one phrase. Which was funny because he sat on Judiciary Committee with some of us, and in my first term, we were in Judiciary, like even this term, well into the wee hours of the morning, and often debating things that for Rod were pointless to debate. Let's get to the meat. We've got to the meat. Let's move along. And here we are debating things for him that were just like, use this word, use that word. It's the same thing. Let's continue forward. But while he would make a big deal out of it, he also understood the validity to it. And so he would give us a hard time, but he would sit there until 2 or 3, and he would just recognize the importance and the significance of that work. He likes the JBC better, much better. And I dare say he found a lot of friendship with the two of you. He would comment about how important the relationships that the three of you had were to him, and that meant a lot too. One of the things that I regret is in 23, when debate limiting rules were introduced into this chamber, he, more than most others, understood the significance of what that was, which is when he introduced reading every bill at length and reading every fiscal note at length. In response, we are going to make it known that this is not okay. And then it was budget week. And he was persuaded, since he was on the JBC, not to continue with that particular course of action. But I fear that I didn't read between the lines well enough when he was talking to me about that particular decision of his, because I think he wanted me to take up the banner and continue to have every bill read at length and every fiscal note read at length. And so I regret that. I regret having not understood what I think he was communicating to me in a roundabout way. To the family specifically, one, Susan, he did eat his vegetables. Even though there were times when the caucus had a whole host of other delicacies available to him, he did stick the course and eat his vegetables. He would tell us, I'm going to get in trouble with my wife if I eat that stuff. And so just know. Also, he would tell me constantly about this bicycle with the Surrey on top and the music that played that you guys would ride, this like 4 or 6 seating bicycle. And he mentioned how him and his wife sat in the back, and then children sat next in the next row, and then the grandbabies in the front. That's how I understood it, at least. And how much fun he would have when he stopped pedaling. Because then the children in the front would look back like, what are you doing, right? We now have to pick up the excess. And he would just have so much fun. He's like, I did it again. I stopped pedaling. The last thing that I really want to put on the record about him, so in my first session, he was upset about something, and I have these little encouragement cards in my desk that I give at different times when I feel so led, and I gave one to him, and it said, hip, hip, hooray, and some other things, and he left it on his desk for the remainder of his time here. And every time he got frustrated with something, and I would come in as Pollyanna, and I would try to explain, this is a different way to look at it, reframe it this way or the other, he would take that card, and he would, yes, I know, hip, hip, hooray. And it was just a fun joke between the two of us. And so while I know that I am sad that he is not here, and I can only imagine the depth of your grief for him not being here, I genuinely believe that he is with Jesus, and that he is now saying eternally a hip, hip, hooray. And so to Rod, I join him in that.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I got to know Representative Bockenfeld when we first began our service together in 2019, but I really got to know him well, serving with him as a member of the Joint Budget Committee. So we were appointed to begin our service at the same time on the JBC, and that's where I really got to know Rep. Bockenfeld. And I will say, everything that everybody has said about him before is exactly true. And, you know, we are a special committee where there are only 6 of us that serve on this committee, and the bonds are very tight. You get to know people in a way that at least I hadn't, serving in other committees before. And you get those small moments of opportunity to talk with one another, kind of learn more about each other's stories and whatnot, which was such a great gift because Rod reminded me of so many, you know, great uncles and my dad. And, you know, I'll just tell probably your family, his family, and then to every constituent, Rod, it was very difficult to ask him to spend money. So to every constituent that wondered whether Representative Bockenfeld was protecting their pocketbook, yes, he was. Even in the Joint Budget Committee, because, you know, our job is to spend money. So I will just say one of the hardest things to do was to ask Representative Bockenfeld to vote yes on a request to spend money. I'm like, wow, what this must have been like to have been one of his kids. Like, can I have $5 to go, you know, go get some gas, go whatever. I can only imagine what those conversations must have been like because I know what they were like in the JBC. Something else, I don't know that we ever figured this out, but Rep. Bockenfeld, he did get exercised about a few things, but one of the things he was most passionate about, really interestingly, was racehorses and racetrack regulation. And we came back to this. I mean, you know, we are running all 19 branches of government, we're spending in all these areas, and the thing, for whatever reason, this one session that Rep. Bockenfeld cared the most about were these horses and the fairness of the regulations on that track. So a lot of passion there. I will also say what a joy it was to get to know him, and because of that, I think most of you all know that I'm a fairly bipartisan type of legislator in this chamber, and something that I've enjoyed in my service, I used to do this with the late Hugh McKean, is Rep. McKean hosted a few bipartisan town halls together, which that's the subject of a whole other conversation. But I thought, you know, Rep. Bockenfeld, he and I, we are both Adams County legislators. Maybe you, Rep. Bockenfeld, want to take up that charge and come just charge into the lion's den with me. I'll go to your district, you come to my district. Oh, no, Rep. Byrd. We're not doing any of that. I think my constituents will hang us both up by our toes. Like, oh, that's a really bad visual. We will not be doing any of that. So, suffice to say, we contained our bipartisanship right here to this chamber, and of course in the JBC committee room. I got to know him in those small moments, getting coffee, getting water, having conversations with him, and I think it's those conversations where I grew to love Rep. Bockenfeld as a person even more. I want to tell his family he loved every one of you. He didn't, to me, only talk about his daughters. He loved his sons. He loved his daughters, he loved his wife, every last one of you, and the way he felt about you made me love him more. My love and peace to your family. He will be remembered and cherished in this chamber by all of us. Peace.
Madam Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We love you, Rod. Rest in peace. With that, Madam Speaker, I would request a recess to allow former members to speak under House Rule 26F.
The House will stand in recess while we hear from former members of the House of Representatives. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Madam Majority Leader. Members, thank you for having this memorial done in honor of Rod Bockenfeld. I had the pleasure of serving with him for 2 terms. And I got to say, looking back then and seeing how he's impacted every one of your lives and the lives of any other member that's come through, I think is something that you should take a moment to really dwell on. One of the things that struck me were the story about the pig and the story about how he would shout "what" after an amendment or something passed. What you may not understand about that is that didn't originate with Representative Bockenfeld. The pig actually was something that was brought in when I came around from a former representative, and it was used for the budget debates and whatnot. When anytime something would pass or the budget would pass, it would get squeaked. And then the "what" comment actually, I think, originated, if my memory serves me correctly, with former Representative Javon Melton. I don't know if you guys are, I'm sure you guys should be familiar with it. I don't know about this side. But what strikes me about those 2 stories is that the impact that any legislator has in this chamber. There are many people that come through this illustrious body and they make a mark on all of us. And that was true for Rod Bockenfeld, for those former members, and it's true for us today when we hear about the wonderful stories of our former colleague. When I came in here, I actually came before Rod Bockenfeld, and many of you are familiar with a lot of the things that I did in this chamber. And if you're not, just ask Madam Majority Leader or the Speaker. They can certainly share with you some of the tactics that are now employed by this caucus for debates here. But one of the things that was interesting about Rod was that when I was working with him when he came in, he was very interested in the rules. He was very interested in understanding how this place operated so that he himself could represent his constituents as effectively as possible. And at the time, I was sort of the rules guy. I was the guy that was down right here in the well making the majority leader's calendar a little bit more complicated. But he would actually, what you may not know, he'd actually encourage that out of me. He would get a kick out of sitting in the back, and he would say to me, "Brother Dave, what are we doing today?" Right? And if he was really interested, he wouldn't say "Brother Dave." He'd say, "Williams, what are you up to now?" And what you may not realize is that this was a man who was deeply concerned about how this state operated and what he could do to make life better, not just for his constituents, but across the state. Because he understood that we were all state legislators that were, sure, designated to represent our specific constituencies, but we were here to also work collectively to make our state better. And when he was really worked up, you could see it. I mean, I'll attest to what everyone has already said, that when he was back there and there was a debate raging and he was getting really, really worked up, you could notice it. And there was a certain point where he would pop and he'd come down here and the rest was history. It was really bad when he would come to me and he'd start asking me procedural questions. Like, "Dave, what rule can we take advantage of? How can we read a bill at length?" I don't quite remember if it was me or not, but I think at some point we had collaborated on actually reading the fiscal notes at length as a way to also slow down perhaps a bill that he didn't agree with. So I apologize, but I don't apologize being a member of this caucus. In any event, Rod really, I think, embodies what it means to be a statesman. I mean, we say that a lot. We especially those former colleagues that have gone on to retire or pass, but I think it was especially true for Rod. He really deeply cared about all of you, and I think that's apparent because every one of us, regardless if you're a Republican or a Democrat, there's some sort of story that you could share about how Rod was someone who cared about working with you and finding solutions that mattered and that could be advanced on behalf of our constituents. There is one story I'll close with here so that other of my former colleagues can come and talk about him. But there's one story I think that sort of shows how committed he was, and it's somewhat funny. But there was I don't know if any of you remember, but the park across the way here, Lincoln Memorial Lincoln Veterans Memorial Park. It wasn't always known as that. It was always Lincoln's Memorial Park. Well, there was a bill by a former Speaker of the House, Alec Garnett. He was trying to rename it to Veterans Park. Rod, being the proud Republican that he is, or was very upset about that. He thought that it was some sort of attack against the memory of Abraham Lincoln. And if you guys know Alec Garnett, that's not how he operates. Alec's not the type of individual that is looking to poke the bear or look for a fight or anything like that, and I knew that about him. And so Rod and I, one morning, we were back here, he was pounding his table, he was saying, this is an outrage, and so on and so forth, and he said, Dave, what can we do about all this? And this is the ironic part, I actually told him, I don't think there needs to be a fight here. We just need to simply talk to Alec and understand where he's coming from. And so Rod asked me, well, can you figure out what's going on here, because I just don't trust it. And so I go to Alec and I say, hey, Alec, Rod is ready to fight you over this. This innocuous bill to rename a park across the way. He's ready to shut down the entire chamber. And this was towards the end of session, so Madam Majority Leader can attest to this, that you really don't want disruptions when you're getting closer to the end. And so Alex said, I'm not trying to do anything wrong. I'm not trying to attack anyone. Dave, what can we do? And I floated the idea. How about we just simply add veterans to Lincoln? And that way, let's avoid the fight, and maybe that's something Rod can be okay with. And so Alec's okay with it. I go to Rod, and I say, Rod, I believe Alec. I don't think he's trying to do anything nefarious or malicious or anything like that. I think he just simply wants to honor veterans, and so what if you were okay with keeping Lincoln and adding veterans to the name? And Rod thought about it, and he said, are you sure that this isn't some sort of ploy? Is this some trick? Because at the time, and I'm sure all of you can attest to this, when you get closer to the end, tempers flare, personalities clash, there's a little bit of mistrust. But I said, yeah, I think Alec is being up front and straight, and he's more than happy, from what I understand, to amend it to avoid any sort of conflict. Because again, this was not one of these bills where normally both sides would clash. And so he said, sure, if he does that amendment, then I'll be okay with it. And so I went back to Alec and I said, hey, Rod is okay with this fix. If you make the amendment, he'll go ahead and consider it squared. And that's what happened. Alec was true to his word, made the amendment. Rod was satisfied. And I bring that up because so often in this chamber we have legislators and individuals who come here who are just looking for a fight, for the sake of fighting. And that's not necessarily what we should be doing here. We should be working together to problem solve for the best of our state and our community. That wasn't Rod. Rod was a man who was concerned about working with whoever he could to make lives better. And that one instance, I think, really highlighted, for me anyway, how he was committed to his constituents and not simply provoking a fight, but rather fighting for the people he cared about in a meaningful way that advanced, of course, his principles and the issues of his constituents. I'm grateful for knowing Rod. I got to know Rod again through my service here, and many times we'd be in the back right before we'd gavel in, and certainly after we gavel out, where we would just talk. Representative Soper is absolutely correct. There would be times where we would just be in conversation and time would fly by, and it didn't seem like it, but what should have been a 5-minute conversation turned into an hour or two conversation just about what's going on in this building, what's going on across the state, personal stories about our families. I mean, that's just how wonderful Rod is. He could be a jovial, joyful, wonderful person who could make you laugh and even have a mischievous streak in him. But then the next moment when it mattered, especially as it related to taxpayer dollars, he'd be a fierce defender for his principles and the values that he stood for. So if anyone's a statesman in the true sense, that was Rod Bockenfeld. So I certainly am sad for his passing, but I'm grateful that his family allowed us to get to know him and serve with him because we're all better off for it. Madam Speaker, thank you so much, and Madam Majority Leader, it's a pleasure being back here again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to say it's good to be back here in the well, but I can't really say that honestly. I was going to say that as former representatives, we've learned to be brief, but Representative Williams killed that one. It was always my belief that when you're here, you get in, you get on, you get out. First of all, let me say you've heard the word statesman used many times. I want you to know the significance of that. Of all the people I served with, and some of you are still here, you hear that term very seldom. You hear politician a lot. And one of the things that really irritated me was when our newspaper changed from statesman to politics. I think it's a sad statement because we're here to serve the people. And that's what Rod did. He was a statesman. And I want you to know the significance of that. It's easy to use the term. It's hard to live up to the definition. So in my term here, being a country boy, I'd get up early because you don't get much done when you got all these people around. So I'd get to the Capitol really early, and the times that I would come into the chamber, there'd sit Rod. He was there. And you couldn't miss him, that's for sure. Voice-wise, size-wise, you just couldn't miss him. He was there. And we had some interesting conversations early in the morning when no one else was around. The thing that I want to share with you about Rod is how much he was willing to learn. And I think that's one of the things that's a challenge to each of you that he would leave as a legacy. Some come here thinking they know everything. And trust me, we never do. We never do. He was willing to learn. So as the ranking member on the Education Committee, which for the family, that means a fancy term for you're in the minority. That's what that means. I would hold sessions after serving 40 years in education. I knew a little bit about education, so I'd hold these sessions called Education 101 on school finance. And Rod would come to those faithfully, and he'd sit there and he'd learn. He'd take the handouts, and he finally said, Jim, I still don't understand education funding. I said, that's okay, Rod. Most of the members of the Education Committee don't either. Nor do most of the members sitting in here. And if you can look me honestly in the eye saying after you debated the School Finance Act, you understand school finance, I'd check your honesty on that deal. Well, the other thing I'd leave you with, because I'm going to be brief, is that when groups come here to the Capitol, it's always fun to visit with them and so forth, and the groups would come, and I had one of those badges on, you know, that's pretty impressive, and the students would look at that and say, kind of like that, don't you? Yeah. So you want to know what it takes to get that badge? Yeah. You have to be old enough. You have to get one more vote than your opponent. You need no other qualifications, which explains what happens here at the Capitol quite often. My challenge to you is don't get too full of yourselves, folks, because you'll leave and you'll be a former member and there'll be a little one-by-one picture of you somewhere in the hallway that your kids may recognize, your grandkids may not recognize, no one else will. You'll just be a one-by-one inch picture. But what I want you to assure the family, Rod was bigger than his picture. Thank you for being here.
The House will come back to order. Members, seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Joint Memorial 1001. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Ricks. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excused, House Joint Memorial 1001 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Members, we will stand in a brief recess so that we may greet the family and guests. The House will stand in recess. Members, we will be getting to business in just a moment. Invite everyone to get back to the chamber. The House will come back to order. Members, we are moving on to third reading. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of third reading of bills, final passage.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for third reading of bills. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to lay over House Bill 1123 until tomorrow, Tuesday, April 15th, 2025.
Seeing no objection, the bill listed by the Majority Leader will be laid over until tomorrow. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1300.
House Bill 1300 by Representative Wilford, also Senator Kipp, concerning claimants' access to medical care and workers' compensation claims and in connection therewith, requiring an employer or the employer's insurer to use the Division of Workers' Compensation's utilization standards and changing the mechanism by which a claimant can choose a treating physician.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1300 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1300 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Rutenell is excused. Please close the machine. With 38 aye, 25 no, and 2 excused, House Bill 1300 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 63.
Senate Bill 63 by Senators Cutter and Michelson Janay, also Representatives Garcia and Wilford, concerning standards that public schools are required to include in policies regarding library resources.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 63 on third reading and final passage.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm just going to ask again that we vote no on this bill. I know it's meant, just like SB 24-216 last year, it's meant to look like it's something about parental control, but reading through it, it's about removing parental control. It's not only about removing parental control, it's about exposing parents who try to exercise parental control. And so there's just a lot wrong with that. This is not about book banning. This is not about censorship. This is about whether or not taxpayers foot the bill to purchase and curate books that should probably be left for discussions with their parents. Somebody. And we covered some of the books that were mentioned last time, specifically as uplifting and wholesome. And I couldn't read 2 sentences from those books before I was shut down. And received a lot of complaints for why my First Amendment was restricted. When I'm speaking on behalf of my constituents who want to have some control over whether this type of material is in libraries with the ability for the access of children. And we tried to amend out the egregious parts with the assumption that they were there inadvertently, and that was denied. So when I look at this amendment here about the discipline or retaliation about a librarian, say, who would intentionally keep books in the purview of children that have been questioned as applicable, then I have to think, okay, well, that's definitely something that was intended to be in there, because it's not. And when I try to just take out education and put in edification, meaning that it should be uplifting, it should be for the betterment of the child. I mean, education, you can be educated about everything. You can be educated about a lot of things you should probably not be educated about. So maybe it should be about edification. That would be education that is uplifting. Also denied. To say that if a library resource is challenged, it must be removed from public accessibility until a determination about the library resource could be made, but would be available under parental supervision or over 18 years of age, also denied. Circumventing parental decisions and responsibilities, amend the re-engross, tried to put, because this bill refers to teachers, or refers to parents that try to remove the reading material, that is clearly not for the edification of the individual, but for the miseducation. Tried to put in that these books to which the sponsors are referring, so that everybody can know what these books are talking about, is ratedbooks.org. It's a good resource. Denied. Try to take out the docs-like clause, like. Insert a not, so that the parental information would not be quorable. So if somebody asks the librarian or asks for the material to be reviewed, it doesn't become a public record for whatever reason, so that the activists can come set their Tesla on fire. Something about those T's. And then trying to change it to a petition so that parents, as they're learning about this bill, could maybe petition it. Unlikely. We know that Colorado is largely not paying attention, but I thought maybe again, I'll just step it down a notch on the reading because we want to see what's for the education of our children. And this is from a rated 3 book, so pretty low. Not from the deep end, warming up in the early pages. I'm saying it because I think I have a responsibility. I had a good rape. The kind where I thought I was young enough that it was definitely not my fault. I was not sexy enough for people to think that I might have secretly wanted it. There's no word, no planet on which a 9-year-old should learn about sex and syphilis in an emergency room while an intern glues her face back together. My friend Sid, short for Sydney, thinks virginity is in stages: mouth virginity, hand virginity, even boyfriend and girl virginity.
Representative DeGraff, I think you made your point. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think my point here is that a body of adults becomes uncomfortable with reading a level 3 book. A level 5 book. Whew. Does anybody want to hear level 5? Reading from the deep end of a level 5 curated by professional librarians, as the bill says, intentionally. Professionally. You can't handle a level 3 book. We know from studies on the brain that these books have their intended deleterious effect. They mess up because when they are not ready for it, they trigger all the dopamine receptors of the kid. And then they shape their view of normal. Because this book, this level 3 book, is placed for them by who they would call trusted adults. And as we heard testimony, that these are some of the same kids that will plant a jelly bean one day with the expectation of getting a lollipop the next. And they trust the adults and they trust the people in this room. Now, they shouldn't, because these books that this bill is intended to keep in school libraries are predatory. They have a long-lasting effect. They affect the brain plasticity in physical ways, not just in psychological ways, but in physical ways. That makes their relationships harder when they're adults. The pornography in some of these, we know from listening to testimony on other bills, makes females afraid to be female. But still, we pay for them with tax dollars. Again, this is not censorship. This is saying these books are still available. They would still be available. Parents can still buy them for their own children. Now, likely if you bought them for somebody else's child, you would be guilty of some sort of violating some sort of obscenity law. But when we have a library do it, all of a sudden it's okay. Maybe you're nosy to see what we can get up to between the sheets. These books are encouraging kids to take on risky behavior. We know from last year when we talked about this, kids are ending up in the hospital because of these books.
Representative DeGraff, You have 15 seconds remaining.
Protect the children. Don't be the strangers that are a danger.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise just to take a quick opportunity to remind us what this bill actually is. This bill is directing local school districts and education entities and establishing a policy to evaluate when a book is brought forward because of a complaint. It makes sure that within all the laws that exist, non-discrimination laws, we also clarified obscenity and referred to our obscenity laws in this bill, thanks to a colleague on the right. This bill is about making sure that there is standardized policies in our education systems for evaluating books that have a complaint against them. That's it. It's not about anything you just heard. It's about policies. It's about making sure that books are age appropriate. It's about making sure that in doing so, you are also recognizing, and we are as education entities, our education entities are also recognizing that there is also diversity and inclusion and equity that is necessary in the literature that our students are reading. This bill is about a policy, and that is it. And I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 63 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 42 aye, 22 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 63 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 149.
Senate Bill 149 by Senator Doherty, also Representative Foray, concerning measures affecting equestrians.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 149 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 149 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 44 aye, 20 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 149 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1105.
House Bill 1105 by Representatives Camacho and Bacon, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning an adjustment to the total employer contribution rate of the Denver Public School Division of Public Employees Retirement Association in connection with the equalization status of the association's Denver Public Schools Division with the association's school division as required by the merger of the Denver Public Schools retirement system with the association.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1105 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I move Amendment L009 to House Bill 1105 and ask, wait,
Representative Camacho, let's first ask for permission.
I defer to my co-prime.
Assistant
Again,
Majority Leader Bacon.
how not to do it.
Madam Speaker.
One moment, please. Representative Camacho, will you withdraw your motion first?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw my, whatever that was, motion.
Thank you. Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We request permission for a third reading amendment.
Please briefly explain.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, colleagues, for the hisses. It is well deserved. However, in our quest to make sure that this bill is the best it possibly could be, and in promise to our stakeholders, during our second reading, we had a few amendments, and one of them forgot to leave out a 5-year timeout. So this is technical in nature, even though it's a little bit longer than you might expect. But what we had done on second reading was allow Denver Public Schools to be excused or removed from the auto-adjust calculation for 5 years. We also am having Denver Public Schools give up their direct contributions to other school division participants for 5 years. That 5-year time limit was not in second reading, and that's what we are bringing before you today, and we ask for a yes vote.
The motion before us is to allow permission for a third reading amendment. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 50 aye, 14 no, and 1 excused, permission is granted. Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Amendment L009 to House Bill 1105 and ask that it be properly displayed.
Thank you. One moment, please. It is properly displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. This is the effect of what we were discussing earlier. It looks more intimidating than it actually is, but if you look at lines 2, where it says 20, everywhere it says 2030 is effectively putting in that 5-year timeout for Denver Public Schools. And we ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of L009 to House Bill 1105. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 46 aye, 18 no, and 1 excused, the amendment is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Bill 1105 as amended on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1105 as amended on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 44 aye, 20 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1105 as amended is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1097.
House Bill 1097 by Representatives Gilchrist and Froelich, also Senators Michelson, Janae, and Doherty, concerning measures to support children in out-of-home placements in family-based settings through the creation of placement transition plans.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1097 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1097 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 41 aye, 23 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1097 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1260.
House Bill 1260 by Representatives DeGraff and Velasco, also Senator Pelton R., concerning the resiliency of the systems that provide electricity in relation to geomagnetic storms.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1260 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Valdez.
Well, members, here we go again. One solar flare in 100 million. 3 infinity, 4,000 beyond. You know what the road to hell's paved with. Vote no.
Representative Barone.
Might as well make the money for these tax-paying widgets useful. And vote yes on my bill. Thank you.
Representative Wilford.
It's just not quite high enough for me. Hold on. Plants. Plants in your house. A house plant, because house plants love CO2 and solar flares and water vapor. And in fact, if you go to an actual greenhouse, they'll burn hydrocarbons, probably propane more than natural gas, but also natural gas in order to argument that the CO2
Representative Wilford, back to the bill, please.
To the bill, Madam Speaker? I'm talking about priorities here.
I'm sorry, Representative Wilford. Back to the bill. This is your final warning.
I'm talking about the priorities of our tax-paying widgets. We have a lot of priorities, a lot of things that could have really been helped a lot of people, just an appeal, not on behalf of tax-paying widgets, but on behalf of the universe and solar flares
Representative
themselves.
Wilford, your time is up. Really? Representative. Members, this is third reading. Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the easy button. This is the easy button for geometric storms. And have they not asked enough of us? And have we not put enough burden on geometric storms in our time here in the General Assembly? I urge and I vote.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Members, in honor of the drops, I will have 7 drops tattooed to my face to mourn the deaths of the Geonista rightist army that de Tocqueville said in 1772. I can't even finish it.
AML Bacon, I am trying to give you latitude here, but your time is done as well. Representative Garcia Sander.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Greetings, fellow Coloradans, tax-paying widgets, and guardians of the grid. All right, folks, buckle up. I'm here to talk HB 25-1260, a bill so tough it could stare down the sun itself. And if that sounds like it came straight from a certain Air Force vet turned engineer, we all know well. Let's just say I've been taking notes. This bill's about geomagnetic storms. Yep, those solar flares that can turn our power grid into a cosmic piñata, folks. 1 minute you're charging your phone, next it's 1859 and you're bartering candles with your neighbor. Not on this bill's watch. HB 25-1260 tells the Public Utilities Commission to size up our grid's weak spots, then lock it down with some no-nonsense fixes. Keep an eye on NOAA's space weather alerts like it's a missile launch, slap surge blockers on transformers, lock fuel valves before they go haywire, and make sure our computers can go full bunker mode. Offline, untouchable, ready for anything. Pure engineering genius, if I do say so. Now picture a guy who's flown C-130s, crunched numbers like they're enemy codes, and probably got a backup generator in his garage just in case. That's the brain behind this bill. It's not about panicking over a solar sneeze. It's about being ready. Back in '89, Quebec's grid ate a $2 billion blackout for breakfast. The Carrington event in 1859 fried telegraphs like they were bacon. We don't need a third strike to get the memo. HB 25-1260 is our shield, and it's built to last. To all you tax-paying widgets out there, bless your wallets. This ain't another Denver money grab. Oh, I know. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I've seen this bill churn out enough bad ideas to pave to the Milky Way. But this bill, it's different. Those ground blockers cost pennies compared to a statewide outage. Making systems separable, that's just smart plumbing for the grid. Cyber certified the hardware, keeps hackers and solar flares out. Try billing Excel for Armageddon. They'd charge you double just for asking. Sure, some folks will roll their eyes. Solar storms, what's next? Meteor proofing the Capitol? Laugh all you want. But when the lights go out, you'll wish you'd listened to the guy with a plan. This bill's got foresight, something rarer than a quiet day in this chamber. It's insurance for your power, your business, your fridge full of leftovers. One day down could cost Colorado $1 billion. HB 25-1260 says we spend small now so you're not broke later. So let's do this, Colorado. Whoops. It's almost got carried away there. It's easy to channel that fire. Vote yes on HB 25-1260, and let's build a grid together, tougher than a front range winter. We'll keep the lights on, the sun at bay, and maybe, just maybe, earn a salute from a certain someone who loves a good fight. Thank you, and God bless our state.
So many choices. Representative Woodrow, then Luck, then Titone.
Can't believe I'm doing this. This is the third time in 6 years I've spoken on thirds. And I'm down here just to say that, yes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And while I will not speak with respect to the intention of the bill's sponsors, I will simply note that intent may be inferred from the predictable and natural results of the bill language. And of course, there is no solution for bad legislation quite like more legislation. And bills like this reflect what's been coming out of this body and represent the next chapter in our march towards a Marxist totalitopia. More hot air and water vapor, both of which plants love. We have to prioritize our priorities. I think it was Mao who said, I know that this bill is meant to look like resiliency to geomagnetic storms, but it may do the opposite. And though I believe we could hear more by referring this bill back to seconds or to the Energy and Environment Committee, I'll dispense with that or with reading the bill at length and simply say we hold these truths to be self-evident, and I urge you to vote your conscience.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask permission to make a third reading amendment to this bill.
Oh, please proceed.
I think that it's important that we actually name this under short title, Legislation 101, what a bill is, it ain't. And so I'd like to ask for permission to rename this bill that. But I will actually not ask for permission because I think this bill is clearly what it is, and it's good. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I woke up this morning and I didn't see the sun. And then it dawned on me. Vote maybe on this bill.
Representative Velasco.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to share what a joy it has been to run this bill with my co-prime. Please vote yes.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am speechless.
To the bill.
Good bill. Vote yes.
Seeing no further fun or discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1260 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 56 aye, 8 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1260 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1163.
House Bill 1163 by Representatives Stewart K. and Taggart, also Senators Roberts and Simpson, concerning free access to state parks for Colorado Ute tribes.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1163 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1163 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 63 aye, 1 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1163 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1308.
House Bill 1308 by Representatives Weinberg and Pascal, also Senator Baisley, concerning extending the deadline for the Office of Information Technology's first annual report on the statewide longitudinal data system.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1308 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1308 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1308 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 31.
Senate Bill 31 by Senator Roberts, also Representative Soper and Velasco, concerning government agency assistance in services related to wireless communication.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 31 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 31 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 47 ayes, 17 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 31 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 9.
Senate Bill 9 by Senators Roberts and Danielson, also Representatives Weinberg and Joseph, concerning recognition of certain tribal court orders.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 9 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 9 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 9 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 35.
Senate Bill 35 by Senators Frizzell and Michelson Janelle, Representatives Clifford and Weinberg, concerning establishing a limitation of actions against an individual performing a real estate appraisal practice.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 35 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 35 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 35 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to Senate Bill 83.
Senate Bill 83 by Senators Doherty and Frizzell, also Representatives Brown and Garcia-Sander, concerning limitations on restrictive employment agreements.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move Senate Bill 83 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 83 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 56 aye, 8 no, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 83 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1307.
House Bill 1307 by Representatives Luck and Carter, also Senators Ball and Rich, concerning updating technical references in education law.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1307 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1307 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Martinez, Smith, and Valdez. Please close the machine. With 63 aye, 1 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1307 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1306.
House Bill 1306 by Representatives Luck and Espinoza, also Senators Ball and Rich, concerning alphabetizing the plumbing profession definitions.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1306 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1306 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 63 aye, 1 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1306 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1069.
House Bill 1069 by Representatives Luck and Hamrick, also Senator Baisley, concerning increasing stakeholder participation in the lawmaking process through the early publishing of bills.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1069 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1069 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 63 aye, 1 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1069 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1305.
House Bill 1305 by Representatives Espinoza and Bradley, also Senators Exum and Catlin, concerning the extension of the repeal date of the reporting section of the Colorado Child Abuse Prevention Trust Fund Act.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1305 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1305 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Leader. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1305 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1158.
House Bill 1158 by Representatives Bradley and English, also Senator Baisley, concerning measures to enhance the integrity of digital education materials in public schools.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1158 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to come up here and dispel some mistruths that went out this weekend. You may have all gotten an email from the Colorado Association of Libraries falsely claiming that this bill promotes censorship and threatens students' access to quality academic research tools. That is simply not true. I have 4 children in public schools, you guys. I'm a Republican. I would never be about censorship. So I wanted to tell you about my bill because it's been amended pretty heavily, and EBSCO and GEL came to the table. They're the ones that provide these contracts to the schools, and they're the ones that rewrote these definitions, and I think they're the ones that made this bill a lot better. So the claim, our bill promotes censorship and limits access to research tools. That is not true. The truth is, it does not remove or censor educational materials. This bill does not restrict access to peer-reviewed research or academic databases. It specifically protects those resources while ensuring that students are not subjected to inappropriate, profit-driven advertisements embedded within those tools. EBSCO and GEL came up with the definition of prohibited advertisements. They're the ones that defined it because they don't want our kids subjected to pop-ups. They're the ones that define the definition. Claim, it will remove materials simply because they contain a URL or citation. False. The truth is, it clearly defines problematic links as those that redirect students to standalone ads, not academic citations. Under the bill, an embedded link or URL is only restricted if it leads to a standalone advertisement, especially one that targets students or generates revenue for third parties. It does not apply to standard academic footnotes or references used in legitimate educational content. Again, EBSCO and GEL redefined the URL and the hyperlink as limiting to educational content. They did not want it to go towards anything that did not provide educational content. Claim, this will hurt students' ability to think critically. Again, I have 4 children in public schools. I would never want to do that to my children. The truth, this bill supports student learning by reducing distractions and preventing targeted advertising related to vaping, firearms, and other inappropriate content. Let's be honest, students need protection from harmful distractions, not more exposures to ads while they're trying to study. HB 25-1158 keeps the focus on learning, not selling. This bill is a student-centered bill that ensures digital education materials remain focused on education, not corporate profits or data harvesting. I urge you to vote a yes on this bill and stand with parents, teachers, and students in keeping our school research tools safe, ad-free, and focused on learning. This will help the schools be protected. This will help our teachers be protected. These vendors contract with the schools, and the schools get to decide what data they want the individual schools to have. So if you're in an ag community, The schools decide if they want animal husbandry. The schools decide if they want John Deere to be involved. The schools get to decide. This bill does not take anything away from the schools. The only thing it limits is prohibitive advertising that the vendors came to the table and want taken away because they want the kids to be free from the advertising. That is all this bill does. It is 3 pages of a legislative declaration that the good representative from Boulder wrote, and definitions that are already in the Student Data Transparency Act, and one more definition that is going to keep our kids free from pop-ups. Not static advertising that the Denver Post might have a cigarette ad from the 1960s. That is not what we're going after. We are trying to eliminate the pop-ups that are happening, and if it's not happening in your schools, that's great. Then this law is not going to target that. If you're one of the schools it's not happening, then kudos to your school. But we know there are several districts that this is happening in, and we are going to try to eliminate that. And we even gave it a 30-day curing period because the vendors don't want this to continue to happen either. So if it's not happening in your district, good for that district. But it is happening in several districts, and it's not fair to the kids. So be with me to support our children, be with me to support the teachers, and be with me to support our local schools. I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to say that my colleague has worked hard on this bill from last year, and I came in at the end for a final stakeholder meeting, which was about 2 hours. And so she has been fair on listening and wanting to create amendments to make sure the bill can get in the correct place. And I know there's lots of conversations going around the chamber, as that's what the norm is. But at some point, we need to make sure that we are doing what we were elected to do by representing the people of the entire state of Colorado and not just the lobby. And I want to say that this is not a Moms for Liberty bill. It is not. I don't know where that came from, but it is not. And many of us sit on different boards across the state of Colorado in our legislative roles, but it doesn't mean the policies we run are the boards that we represent, because I myself sit on many boards, and those aren't the bills that I'm bringing forward. So I just wanted to put that out there. And again, simply this bill is just eliminating adult content from Chromebooks. We can't just protect kids on certain pieces of legislation or when it's convenient. This is good policy, which is why I'm on it. And in this place, it should be about the policy and not the person. It should be about the policy, and this is good policy. Thank you for your work on it, and I'm glad I came in and got the opportunity to be a part of the conversations and make sure that we're doing the right thing by protecting kids in the state of Colorado. And there's a lot of smart people in here, but I tell you what, we don't know everything, and just listening to understand about the policies that are coming forward is the right thing to do as legislators. So again, thank you for your heart and your passion to want to protect kids. Thank you.
Representative Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the representatives for bringing the bill. Of course, we all want to protect students. There's nobody in this room that doesn't want to protect children. I do urge a no vote for the reason that defining inappropriate is something that we do not agree on. And so the concern in saying what is inappropriate material will be different from one person than it is to another person. So I urge a no vote.
Representative Bradley, this is your second and final time to speak. You have 5 minutes and 35 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I offered an amendment, L007. We had inappropriate, harmful material in the original bill. We realized that was very subjective, so the vendors came to us and said prohibited advertising. And we agreed that that was less subjective and way more able for the schools to digest that. We did not want to put something unfair on the schools. So if you remember, L007, prohibited advertising, means an advertisement published by a contractor in the contractor's curated digital research collection that results in the contractor collecting revenue generated from the advertisements appearing in the curated digital research collection. Prohibited advertisement does not include an advertisement originally published in a newspaper, magazine, or on the internet that is curated and aggregated in the curated digital collection. It goes on and on. We realized that inappropriate was too subjective. So we went back to the table up until 2 hours at the last minute, because I was dedicated to stakeholding this bill until the very last minute. I didn't shut anyone out. Till the very last minute, I came up with 3 more amendments. So it is disingenuous to come up here and say that my bill still says inappropriate. It does not. We went back to the table and we all came to an agreement. And that's why the vendors are in a monitor position. Thank you.
A caution about characterizing any behaviors as disingenuous. Representative Kelty.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am in support of this. Our military does something very similar, and it's basically it's a good practice, and I'm asking for an aye vote. It's just common sense, and it's done across the land in many different areas, and this is something that needs to be done. So I ask for an aye vote. Again, military does the same thing.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1158 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 31 aye, 33 no, and 1 excused, the bill is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1281.
House Bill 1281 by Representatives Lindstedt and Sukal, also Senators Hendrickson and Pelton B, concerning K vehicles.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1281 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1281 on third reading, final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. McCormick, Ricks, and Smith. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1281 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move the following bills be made special orders on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 12:50 p.m. House Bill 1049, House Bill 1098, Senate Bill 152, Senate Bill 164, Senate Bill 146, and House Bill 1299.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders on Monday, April 14th at 12:50 p.m. Whew, that was close. 12:50 p.m. Representative Lukens. Members, you have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Lukens will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen on iLegislate. And in today's folder on your box account, bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the court rule is relaxed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1321 until tomorrow.
House Bill 1321 will be laid over until tomorrow. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1049.
House Bill 1049 by Representative Garcia, also Senators Amabile and Gonzalez, concerning communication rights for persons in custody.
Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the, okay, hold on one sec.
Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1049 and the Appropriations Report and the Judiciary Report.
To the Appropriations Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Appropriations, we adopted essentially a strike below that went through a lot of stakeholding to be more inclusive of the methods in which lawyers can contact They're clients that are incarcerated, and I ask for an aye vote.
Rep. DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was just going to ask the sponsor just to stay up here with me. So I was just looking at here in this last paragraph, or the person's family by making a reasonable, and that is the purpose for the amendment that I would like to make to 1049, because it's not defined. And so I move L003 to 1049, HB 1049, and ask that it be displayed.
So moved. One moment.
All right, thank you.
1 moment, Rep. DeGraff. It is properly displayed. Rep. DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in CRS 15-1-702, it refers to spouse, parents, descendants of either parent, spouse, lots of definitions. CRS 25.5-6-1402, individual spouse, any dependent child of the individual. That's a little bit more restrictive than this. 25.5-10-202 means interdependent group that consists of parent, child, sibling, grandparent, aunt, uncle, spouse, any combination thereof, member with intellectual developmental disability. That one goes on. That's quite a long one. 29-4-703, 2 or more parents, persons, whether or not related by blood. The closest one, I think, would be 35-15-108, means a person's spouse, child, parent, or sibling. So with this, we just went a little bit, tried to go a little bit less restrictive, but define it so that we can keep it in line with a reasonable number of phone calls and communicating, since this does put a bit of a burden on them. So this is family, means person who is related by blood or marriage or adoption. So in this last case was 35-15-108. They might limit, say, like a brother by adoption or a child by adoption or something like that. So this is related by blood, marriage, or adoption. I think it opens it up, creates a little bit more lenience, defines it so that we can do this. So I ask for an aye vote for the amendment, just to, since the intent here is to keep this reasonable. I think this keeps the number of phone calls reasonable, while still defining, but also kind of expanding the number of individuals that would be in that. So I ask for an aye vote.
Rep. DeGraff, you made the motion to the bill, but this is an amendment to the Appropriations Committee report. Can you restate your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L003 to the Appropriations Committee report for HB 1049. Do I need to start over, or can I just go with my previous comments?
I think you're all set. Thank you.
Previous comments.
Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm going to ask for a no vote on this. I think we don't often fully understand the full makeup of people who are incarcerated and what their families look like, and to be so descriptive and definitive in what is family, to limit it so much to related by blood, marriage, or adoption, could put some individuals who are incarcerated at a disadvantage when we don't actually fully understand what familial makeup looks like for these individuals, and ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Rep. Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if the bill sponsor might be open to actually a substitute amendment that, because as I read this, the person is entitled to 2 calls, one to their attorney and one to their family. And I just wonder if, in this day and age, you may not have family, or you may not have, in the way that this amendment contemplates, you might not have family, or you might not have family nearby. And so whether that can be changed such to read, the person's, like a personal call, because if the person is limited to family, someone has to enforce that. And if it becomes known that it's a friend and not a family member, will that phone call get shut down or what have you? And I just wonder if that can be changed to just make it known that they are entitled to 1 personal call.
Rep. Garcia.
Thank you for that consideration, Representative. I think one of the important things to note, and this was discussed heavily under stakeholding, specifically with the sheriffs, is that the reason why we had to even bring this strike below was the concept of who will they be calling, or who's even calling. How do they prove that the person that is engaging the phone call is in fact the attorney, or the person who's calling in is in fact the attorney and not somebody who's pretending to be? And so that is why the original bill doesn't exist anymore. We have the strike below, and in that is also within the purview of the entity of the jail or prison themselves to have that recorded of who these people can be calling. So that is already within the practice of the jail, and so I probably wouldn't entertain that that amendment, only because it's already in practice.
Rep. Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So would it be fair then to say that those folks who don't have family are missing out on the touch, the communication with someone who would care about them in their emotional, social, relational, spiritual, physical sense, not just their legal sense? I mean, are we precluding them from being able to communicate with those people who otherwise would love on them?
Rep. Garcia.
I would like to say no, but I think just my overall distrust of the carceral system would say yes in general, that people who are incarcerated no longer have access to the people who care for them, whether it's like spiritually or morally. And so I think in that respect, I would agree with you. With regards to this bill and how what's important in this bill here is to make sure that the access of a person who's incarcerated to their attorney is made more accessible without the requirement of in person. That's really what this bill is about, that we are making it more possible for individuals who are incarcerated to be able to access their legal representation in a much faster way and in a much more affordable way that's also affordable for the individual and for the state as well.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L3. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. L3 is lost. To the Appropriations Committee report, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The appropriation report passes. Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm just going to ask for a no vote on the Judiciary Committee report. We should have stricken the Judiciary Committee report in appropriations, which we failed to do, and so please just vote no on the Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Judiciary report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. The Judiciary report fails. To the bill, Rep. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, currently the law guarantees that lawyers can go in person to see people who are in jail or in prison, to see the clients that they represent. However, nothing in the law guarantees that a lawyer can call or can video chat or use any remote electronic method to contact and communicate with their clients. As a result, the lawyers often have to drive hours for even a brief communication with their clients. So what does this do? This slows down legal cases, it limits communication, it hampers private lawyers from taking cases throughout the state, and it costs money and time for public defenders and alternative defense counsel. This also can save sheriffs and counties money and manpower hours, and having people brought to the court where phone calls and video communications could have prevented the need for transport. Further, with the expansion of court through video conferencing, attorneys often cannot prepare ahead of court by speaking to clients to be prepared. This bill solves this problem by ensuring that jails and prisons have at least one means of electronic communication, which could be calls, audiovisual conferencing, or any other means of electronic communication for members of a legal team to communicate with people in custody. It protects attorney-client privilege by ensuring the communications are private and unrecorded. And really, many jails already do this, but some don't. We heard in committee from a variety of people in support of including public defenders, alternative defense counsel, and members of the private bar that this would be very helpful. It is consistent with the growth of electronic communication in our court system post-COVID. This bill involved stakeholding with law enforcement even prior to introduction and after committee. After committee, it was rewritten to address law enforcement concerns and add flexibility. Stakeholding involved the county sheriffs of Colorado, several individual sheriffs, the chiefs of police, and others. There is not a single law enforcement entity who is in opposition to this bill. The strike below ensures that jails and DOC have flexibility to choose what electronic method of communication that they make available. It adds language to this communication that it's subject to all reasonable administrative and operational procedures to ensure it's realistic and can be implemented. And it also limits the bill to applying to fixed places of custody where a person is held over 24 hours to ensure it does not affect street law enforcement. This is common sense reform with no fiscal impact to the state, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1049. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1049 passes. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1098.
House Bill 1098 by Representative Stuart Aaron Soper, also Senator Michael St. concerning establishing an automated protection order victim notification system in the Division of Criminal Justice.
Rep. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the appropriations report to House Bill 1098 and ask for an aye vote.
Rep. Stewart, if you don't mind moving the bill and the judiciary report and the appropriations report all in one go. Rep. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My apologies. I move House Bill 1098 and the appropriations report and the judiciary report.
Well done. To the appropriations report. Rep. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In appropriations, we simply added some language that just clarified that this program cannot start until the identified funding has been secured and cannot be funded with general fund support, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the appropriations report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The appropriations report passes. To the judiciary report, Rep. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L004 to the Judiciary Committee report and ask that it be properly displayed.
One moment. L4 is properly displayed. Rep. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. L004 adds an additional notification requirement that was discussed in the House Judiciary Committee, suggested by the good representatives from Adams County. Just keep in mind, though, that the list in the bill is an including but not limited to list, so we can and probably will do more notifications that are what then are outlined in the bill if the appropriate information from CBI and the courts is available. The second thing that this amendment does is modify the indemnity language at the request of the Department of Public Safety. The language in the original bill was added at the request of the AG's office, and the change in L004 has been discussed and agreed to by both the Department of Public Safety and the AG's office, and I would urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L4 passes. To the judiciary report. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the judiciary report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The judiciary report passes. To the bill, Rep. Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So House Bill 1098 is a pretty straightforward bill that if there's a violation with a protection order, it would inform the victim in the protection order situation of what that violation was while the protection order exists. This is to be able to inform victims of sort of what's going on and to keep them up to date, and we'd ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1098. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1098 passes. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 152.
Senate Bill 152 by Senators Frizzell and Michelson Janelle, also Representatives Garcia Sander and Foray, concerning requirements for healthcare practitioner identification.
Rep. Foray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 152 and the HHS Health and Human Service Committee report to second reading.
To the committee report. Rep. Foray. Rep. Garcia Sander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, we adopted amendments that reduce the maximum fine from $5,000 to $500 and encourages other interventions before the fine, as well as give more latitude around language that can be used in verbal introductions.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the HHS committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report passes. Rep. Foray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is great. The growing complexity of healthcare and the wide range of professional titles and qualifications used in clinical settings can make it difficult for patients to understand who is providing care and what their role is.
Rep. Garcia Sander.
This bill requires practitioners providing services in specified practices wear identification name tags displaying their credentials and requires practitioners to verbally communicate their specific state-issued license, certificate, or registration and identify themselves using their titles or abbreviations during the first interaction with the patient. And we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 164. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Oh, I'm sorry. The passage is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 152. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 152 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 164.
Senate Bill 164 by Senators Winterreff and Marchman, also Representatives Jackson and Wilford, concerning opioid antagonists with a primary focus on the youth opioid epidemic and in connection therewith clarifying requirements for school policies about possession and administration of opioid antagonists, requiring the State Board of Health to determine who a prescriber may prescribe or dispense an opioid antagonist to, and requiring the State Board to consult with the Colorado Youth Advisory Council on issues related to the youth opioid epidemic.
Rep. Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 164.
So moved. Rep. Jackson.
Colleagues, this bill is really an effort to address our youth opioid epidemic in an effort to save lives and be able to provide be able to extend the provision of life-saving medication naloxone. And basically what this bill is, it was brought to us by COYAC, Colorado Youth Advisory Council. And so what this bill does is it allows there to be naloxone kept in defibrillator cabinets and also on school buses, and it also mandates that COYAC be able to meet with the Department of Health twice a year in order to talk about the youth opioid epidemic and also being able to talk about other health initiatives so that they can have a voice, they could have a seat at the table and be able to speak to the things that directly impact them.
Rep. Wilford. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members, this is a good bill that will save lives, and we ask for your yes vote.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 164. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 164 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 146.
Senate Bill 146 by Senators Rich and Michelson Janelle, also Representatives Hartsock and Lukens, concerning alignment of fingerprint-based criminal history record check laws with federal requirements.
Rep. Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 146 and the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report.
All right. To the committee report. Rep. Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L3 to the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report, and I ask that it be properly displayed.
All right. That is coming into focus. All right, that is properly displayed. Rep. Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were able to get the FBI to review the committee version, and they found a few other changes that they wanted to make, which is this amendment. Specifically, locals only establish their policies in either ordinances or resolutions. So this amendment strikes the terms the FBI does not recognize, and we ask for a yes vote on L3.
Rep. Hartsuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just real quick as a refresher, this is designing an umbrella policy so all the municipalities can feed up to this by developing their policies. That way we're not dictating them how to do it. They're developing it, so we'll feed into the umbrella policy, which then the state level can go to the FBI and get the national background checks for public safety. So we request an aye vote.
All right, is there any further discussion on the Amendment 1L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment passes to the committee report. Rep. Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Business Affairs and Labor Committee, we did do a strike below on the bill. So this committee report is the entirety of the bill at this point. We brought this bill forward because of a bill that we actually did last year, myself and Representative Hartsuk. And so Senate Bill 146 is by all accounts a cleanup of many statutes requiring criminal history checks for certain professions, licenses, and certifications. The FBI maintains a database that contains all criminal history, arrest, and conviction data nationwide. And they have strict protocols in place and requirements that states must follow in order to access their database. And so this bill creates an umbrella policy that allows local municipalities to create a policy or ordinance that requires a criminal history check, record check for a local business. This bill does not create any new background checks or remove that requirement for any of the impacted licenses, certifications, or registrations. Since we had to bring a strike below, the committee report is basically the whole bill at this point, so I ask for a yes vote on Business Affairs and Labor's committee report.
All right, Rep. Hartsuk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the point to all of this was that because there was a lot of confusion. So by the creation of the umbrella policy for multiple businesses that are out there, that's what makes it very easy now for the municipalities to develop their policies that flows through this at the state level. They go to the FBI. This keeps the bad actors, if they come into our state and into businesses before that did require background checks, we will now become aware of that and catch them because they were moving here and setting up shops. Last year we ran one of the bills was for human trafficking, and they had found all kinds of ways to get around that. These bills are designing to have a uniform policy across the state so businesses and municipalities can deal with this and know exactly what's coming into their local area, and it will keep good businesses in business and bad ones out. We ask an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor report. Committee report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. All right, the Business Affairs and Labor report is adopted. To the bill, Rep. Lukens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just described what the bill does now, so I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 146.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right, Rep. Hartsuk.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good bill, vote yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 146. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it. Senate Bill 146 is adopted. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1299.
House Bill 1299 by Representative Duran, also Senator Roberts, concerning a voluntary contribution of all or a portion of an income tax refund as a donation to the Animal Protection Fund.
Majority Leader Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1299 in the appropriations report.
Okay. All right, to the report, to the committee report.
In appropriations, we ran J amendment to appropriate funds to the Department of Revenue, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the appropriations report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the appropriations report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill. Rep. Armagost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a bill where people getting their tax return can check a box that says they want to donate. They can opt in to donate to a fund that would take care and protect animals that are displaced during natural disasters. In my district, we had a lot of the fires going on where there were a lot of animals displaced, especially the large animals. People had to take them in. Otherwise, they were brought to areas where they could be held until the owners could reclaim them, or otherwise they would be safe to return to their homes. This costs money, obviously, so this is just simply a fund to help those local governments and those entities that are taking those animals on pay for this care, the food and everything else, veterinary treatment, everything else that goes into keeping these animals safe while they're displaced during natural disasters. So I encourage a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? All right, seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1299. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. All right, the ayes have it, and there we go. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1299 is passed. Majority Leader Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
All right, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Schiebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1049 as amended, 1098 as amended, and 1299 as amended, passed on second reading, order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading final passage. Senate Bills 146 as amended, 152 as amended, 164 passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading final passage. House Bill 1321 laid over until April 15th, 2025.
Representative Lukens? No. Oh, Representative Ryden. Members, you have heard the motion. The motion before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Bottoms, Clifford, Duran, English, Hamrick, Kelty. Clifford, English, Hamrick are excused. Please close the machine. With 39 aye, 22 no, and 4 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to lay over the balance of the calendar till tomorrow, Tuesday, April 15th, 2025.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until tomorrow. Announcements and introductions. Representative Lindstedt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Finance Committee will be meeting in about 10 minutes to hear House Bill 1314 and Senate Bill 79.
Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Judiciary Committee members, we are not meeting today, but I am making an announcement because I'm adding a bill to our calendar tomorrow. We're going to hear House Bill 1329 tomorrow, and I will be taking off Senate Bill 190, and we're going to meet at our 1:30 time or upon adjournment, whichever comes first.
Representative Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee will be starting sharply at 1:40 p.m. Thank you.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources will also be meeting at 1:40 p.m.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to announce that the legislator Bible study meets tomorrow morning, 7:15 in room 109 on the garden level. Hope to see you there.
Representative Woog. Barone and Garcia Sander, your attention, members, please.
Thank
Representative
you.
Woog.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thanks for joining me, guys. So just thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
So approved.
So thank you. It's important for me to come down and say a few words to honor the late Tom Van Loan, and I appreciate this privilege. He passed away last Friday at the age of 64, and I think there are, how many of us up here? Six of us who knew him, and many of us from his time as a Weld County chair. He was a husband, a father, and a brother. I think we're just going to have to start at the beginning. In the book of Genesis, God was creating the world, and he said it was good. He created the light and saw that it was good. He created the earth, the sea, the trees, the living creatures, all of it. And he saw that it was good. And when he got done, he said it was very good. He didn't say perfect. He said it was good. There's no way I can sum up 18 years in a few minutes for Tom Van Loan, but maybe I can just give you some essence of who he was. Tom gave me my first job when I moved to Erie back. He gave me my first job when I moved back to Erie in 2008. It seems like another time in history because back then people were still looking through newspapers for job openings, and that's exactly where I found an advertisement for a job with the Erie Real Estate Company. He was looking for a licensed agent, and I had just passed my Colorado real estate exam, and I was ready for work. I had one interview with Tom and was hired right away, and I realized immediately how I enjoyed going to work. We'd sit in his office, and he'd tell stories, oftentimes about his days as the mayor of Erie. It was a different town back in the early 90s and early 2000s. The mayor and board members often had their town meetings in a smoke-filled room as they puffed away on stogies. After meetings, they'd go to the local dive bar for drinks and pool tournaments. He also told of successes as a mayor, like getting the Erie Community Center built as a staple gathering place for this once quiet but quickly growing town. He told me about his influence and help in getting Colorado National Golf Course built, home of the CU Buffs. And these stories, they excited me to be a part of something bigger than myself, something that would change the lives of residents, even if just in a small way. So soon enough, I decided to run for trustee. The first attempt was unsuccessful, but with a departure of a current trustee, Tom was quick to gather support to get me appointed to the open seat. Former trustees, mayors, friends of Tom, and Tom himself spoke in support of me at a board meeting, and shortly after that, I was appointed as a trustee. To my surprise, Tom never asked me for anything, not once. He was there to listen and maybe offer advice, but he didn't want anything from me. And he was a developer. It would have been so easy for him to ask me for a favor or two, but that wasn't Tom. He just saw something in me and wanted to help. Tom always went for what he wanted. He told me a story of how when he was a kid, he'd go watch planes take off and land at the local municipal airport for hours on end. He told himself that one day he'd be a pilot, and then one day he became a pilot. Tom wanted to build great things, so he found a way, with some help from family, to build what was at the time a large commercial development in Erie. Tom was also a hell of a golfer, and he enjoyed it so much that he built a chipping green in his front yard of the home that he built in the Erie Air Park. He loved creative ideas and was not afraid to let people pursue their dreams. He once allowed a friend to host a professional wrestling match with a legit full-size wrestling ring in the parking lot of his commercial complex. He was forever the optimist, a dreamer, and a doer. He loved music. He played guitar with a band in his airplane hangar. He even built a stage so they could host concerts. Tom believed in you and made you believe in yourself. Tom loves his wife, Dory, and his daughter, Jenna. He was so proud of them, and he spoke of them with admiration often. So there's an old Bill Cosby album that my mom had on cassette tape when I was young, and he talks about Genesis, and he's talking about how when man made stuff. And when man made the car, he said, amazing. God made a tree, and he said, good. Man made a refrigerator and said, stupendous. God made a rabbit and said, good. Well, the wheels fell off the car and the refrigerator broke down. But the tree still stands and the rabbit remains running. What God makes is good. Thanks, Tom, for being a good friend. Thank you.
Representative Clifford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in a moment of personal privilege.
So approved.
Thank you. First, members, I would like to thank you for your extraordinary outpouring and the love that I have felt with the passing of my father on Saturday. This has been a long time coming. My dad was the world's longest living survivor with pancreatic cancer, 23 years. We've been on hospice multiple times in his life, but this last time we knew that this was it. And I'm still shocked, having had a plan, having worked out his estate, knowing exactly what we would do and how it would go, down to I walked out of here on Thursday to get on an airplane to fly home. He waited until I got there. But the moment that he was gone, it was a different tune. And it's like a gut punch, and I really appreciate how gracious and how great you've all been with me. Share a little bit about my father. The things you like about me are from him. The things you don't like about me, also from him. He was a politician. He was a business owner, lots and lots of businesses. And he was one of the most humble people that I ever met. Most customers of many of his businesses would have never known that he owned the company or 7 more like it. He was the most honest man I ever knew. In fact, being able to spend some time driving in a car by myself, on a plane by myself, etc., over the last few days, I was trying to think of a time that I ever remembered him tell a lie. And I remembered a few, and they were always for fun. But I don't ever remember a moment in time where he ever misled someone. In fact, it was usually brutally the other way. He would tell you what you needed to hear, certainly not what you wanted to hear. I grew up in a very large political family. We had a huge round table in my kitchen, and I cannot tell you how many debates I heard him manage. Sometimes court cases got resolved at that table. Sometimes we had both Democrats and Republicans in our family, so that's probably why we can all get along with me. You know, I come from the Democrats. The Republicans were certainly well represented around that table. One point in time, one uncle was the only Republican elected in the county that I lived in. And it was fascinating to always see my dad be the calmness, or the person that could just sort it all out. And I hope that as I serve in this place, that I get to bring a little bit more of him to each of you. And I appreciate where he left me and how well he left our family and those that loved him. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to share a little bit about him with you.
Thank you, Representative. Our hearts are with both members who have experienced recent loss. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
The House will stand in recess until later today.